Alright, hello YouTube, this is Ryder in Black, and I was recently asked to explain the differences between a saltwater aquarium and a freshwater aquarium. And I'm just gonna go over the basic differences. I mean, there's so much to cover that I'll never get it into even an hour of discussion. So I'm gonna go ahead and explain filtration first. As you can see, they both have the same filters and they're both 10 gallons, and here's one of the differences. In this one I do have carbon and I do have a biological filter. However, in this one I do not have carbon and I do not have a biological filter, and I will explain why. Now, the reason I don't have carbon in this one is because carbon does increase phosphates, and phosphates aren't good, and carbon is quite discriminate. It will filter out good chemicals as well as bad chemicals, and I don't want that. I don't want the bad chemicals, but I do want the good ones, so I don't have it. In the fresh water, I really don't mind that it filters out the good chemicals or the bad because it is fresh water. And I know what you're thinking, what is he doing keeping cichlids and tropical fish together? But I've had them since they were babies and they get along quite fine. As you can see, that's a pretty big cichlid back there, and well, nobody's dead, and I have pretty small fish in here. And well, on to a second difference. In this tank, as opposed to that one, the filtration takes place in the rock and in the sand. To, well, that one takes place in the rocks too, but not as much. See, the rocks come with live bacteria that filters out ammonia. Well, it eats ammonia, turns it into nitrite, and nitrite is pretty toxic, as you might know already. And then different bacteria turns that nitrite into nitrate, which isn't as toxic, still pretty bad, but your fish can take it. And now all the nitrate that is left over does have to go somewhere. So the way you get rid of it is you do a water change, just like you would with a freshwater. I do about a 5 to 10% water change every week, and that's just because I don't have a sump and I don't have a protein skimmer. I don't think it's really necessary in a 10 gallon, and I don't want to go any bigger just because of the cost. They just start multiplying out of control. So I'm going to explain to you how my tank works. The filter filters out most of the big stuff in the water, or I should say all of the big stuff in the water, but will not filter out ammonia, nitrite, and all that stuff. What does filter that out is the rock. The rock comes encrusted with bacteria and the sand. Now, a lot of people say if you have a 4-inch sand bed, it is a lot better than having a shallow sand bed because of all the beneficial bacteria you have, and it becomes a nitrate consuming system. And pretty much all that stuff does, the protein skimmer, the 4-inch sand bed, the huge canister filters, all that, it just prolongs a water change. That's pretty much all it does, as well as stabilizing your system. But as you can see, this tank is very healthy. I have a lot of stuff. There's a pink and green cucumber. There's a bubble tip anemone that ate yesterday. That's why he's all recluded up in his little corner. That's normal. I have clams. I have an emerald crab. I have some hermit crabs. I have an urchin, sand sifting starter there. So those are the basic differences. Now let's go over here to the freshwater. In the freshwater, um, the filter acts like a material filter, which filters out all the material stuff floating in the water, and the rocks actually slowly act like the marine rocks. They build bacteria, which happens very, very slowly. I mean, if you set up a freshwater tank, the cycle might take you a couple of weeks, to whereas the saltwater, within a week or two, you're pretty much good to go. This might take months. For me, I know I went through a lot of trouble with this tank. It took me about 3 months for it to settle, but now it's doing pretty good. I just need to change the water. Now, another thing that you might find a little confusing is telling how much salt is in the water when you already set it up, and that's what you get this for. This is a hydrometer. This just happens to be a deep 6, and you basically just do this, dump some of the water out, and I don't know if you can see that, but that will actually tell you how much salt is in the water. And I keep it at 0.024, but as you can see, I had some evaporation last night, so it's probably at 1.25, 1.26, which is fine. It's still in the range. Nobody's stressing out. And now I'm going to talk about sumps. A sump is basically like an addition to your tank, like an addition where you don't keep fish in. And it basically just adds to your volume of water and the volume of live rock and live sand that you have. I personally think one is not needed. It is definitely a plus. It will stabilize your system immensely. But as you can see, I don't have one. I don't think one is needed for a 10-gallon, and thus keeping this system fairly simple. I mean, it's basically a freshwater setup for salt water, and nobody stresses out, nobody dies, so it's actually pretty good. Now, I don't know if I answered your questions already. I hope I did. I mean, as you can see, it's pretty simple. Your filtration is the sand and the rocks, which is pretty much the decoration of it. And the filter's there just for water movement and material filtering. So I hope I helped. If I didn't, please comment and let me know what I did wrong, if I was mistaken in something, or if you still want more questions answered. I would be happy to answer your questions. So just let me know.